That would mean that the Sphinx was not carved 4,000 years ago, but maybe up to 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. So now you have an even larger archaeological problem. You've got people 10,000 years ago going around with 200-ton blocks. It's a serious issue at that point. There is another temple that's a very important temple in Egypt that's not so well known and recognized, that is very well guarded at this time, that is an anomaly in Egyptian buildings. This is called the Ozarian Temple. This is fresh from Abydos. And these blocks are polished pink granite in excess of 100-ton to 200-ton blocks stacked and organized into this incredible building. Now, look at the size of this block above his head. There are tongues and grooves. It's very highly engineered. You got to realize that we're talking about Egyptian here that's supposed to not have the wheel. They don't have the pulley. They don't have a crane to grab things and put them on top of things. Certainly not things that big. And this temple is typically as well a big controversy, because as you see there's water on the bottom of it. It typically floods annually or almost all the time because it's below the Nile level. The temple is dug into the ground. So when the archaeologists first found it, they said, oh, the Egyptians dug and then built from there. But there's no other evidence in Egypt that the Egyptian would do that to build the temple. And when geologists look at the sides of the temple, they notice that the geological layering on the side of the temple would make it so that it's actually the other way around. The temple was there, and then the sedimentation from the Nile generated all the layers that eventually buried the temple. And then the archaeologists, lady archaeologists, found it and dug it out. Now, that would make this temple much older than previously believed. Like right now is being dated at about 4,000 years old. It would ask that that temple was there approximately 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. And eventually I came across these things that were thought to have been popularized now as the flower of life. Here's another picture of it. Again, those are fresh pictures. It's very difficult to find these pictures. You can study. I studied this temple all the way back to the original papers that were published on it, and I was never able to get one of these pictures. And actually, really glad to have them now. And you can see them again. And so they're high on the pillars. And what's really amazing about this graph, this geometry that's imprinted on the granite, is that it's not cut, it's not etched into the granite, it's burnt into the atomic structure of the granite. It's burnt onto it like if it was laser burnt on the granite. And that poses a very large problem when you're thinking of 10,000 years ago, people going around burning stuff with lasers. Interestingly, when you take this geometry and you extrapolate it into 3D structures, now each circle becomes a sphere. The petals that we were discussing earlier, or the lobes we were discussing earlier, appears, and if you place a tetrahedron in each sphere, you get the 64 tetrahedron grid. The reason I'm mentioning all this is that there's evidence that there's people in this world that were able to do things in a manner that's completely different than how we do things today, and that exceed our capacity to do them today with all of our technology. Maybe, just maybe, because our technology is based on reactive, explosive technologies instead of contractive space-time curvature technologies, which would allow us to control gravitational fields and so on. These Egyptians had hieroglyphs as well that represented the highest level of initiation. The highest level of initiation that had to do with those sun gods. And they, these higher level of initiation always related, or typically related, to the eye of Horus. And when they use this hieroglyph in their writing, it's interesting to note that when they did, they used each part of the eye for a specific fraction of mathematics, and that each fraction went on towards the 1/64th fraction, which is the dynamics of the division of tetrahedron array in space. The other thing is that these 200-ton blocks were not their only level of achievement. This statue has been found in the middle of the desert, a few hundred miles away from the quarry where it was cut. And it's a statue is believed to be of Ramses II, I believe. And it has, it's a granite statue, extremely highly polished, that is made out of one block of granite that weighs in excess of 1,000 tons. 1,000 tons. These are very, very large anomalies. There's not just pyramids in Egypt. There's pyramids in many other countries, in South America and in Mexico and so on. And most people don't know, now remains of pyramids have been found in many other countries. This is Japan, underwater, near the island of Okinawa. These are the remains of pyramids that went under the water a very long time ago. What's great about pyramids that went underwater is that when they do, you get organic growth on it. See, when you're dating things, and you're using carbon dating, when you do so, you can carbon date things that have carbon in it that is organic life. So, for instance, when they carbon date pyramids in South America and so on, they say, well, you know, we'll carbon date this guy that was buried beside it, or we carbon date, you know, this campfire, or we carbon date what we find here, and then they extrapolate that these people were the builders of the pyramid. But when a thing like that goes under the water, then coral growth happens. And that is organic life, so you can carbon date at least when it went under the water. And when this was carbon dated, then it showed that this pyramid must have gone underwater 10 to 12,000 years ago, at the flooding of the last ice age. Now that would be when it went underwater. That is not necessarily when it was constructed.